George Strait is more than a legend in country music. He is the unshakable heartbeat of American music. With his voice, he has shaped 5 decades of the nation's emotional landscape. From Amarillo by Morning to Check Yes or No, these songs don't just echo through small towns, dusty pickup trucks, military barracks, and kitchen radios. They are woven into the fabric of America's soul. They are more than music. They are timeless expressions of a nation's story. Born from the tough soil of a Texas ranch and raised with a quiet strength, George's journey was forged in the fires of personal tragedy. The abandonment of his mother, the loss of loved ones, and the harsh realities of ranch life tested his resilience. Yet George's spirit remained unbroken, and he ascended to heights few ever reach. However, his path was not without shadows. He endured personal losses that could have broken even the strongest spirits. Now, at 73, just when it seemed that peace had finally found him, he faces battles of a different kind. His own health struggles and those of Norma, his partner for over 50 years, have stirred deep concern among those who love him. But despite the storm, George's legacy is unwavering, a testament to a life lived with quiet courage, unyielding resolve, and music that will never fade. Before we continue, take a moment to leave a like in honor of George Strait, the man who transformed hardship into immortal melodies, offering his heart to a nation. Every legend carries within them a defining moment, a moment that shatters the world beneath their feet and carves an indelible scar in their soul. For George Strait, that moment arrived long before fame ever touched his life. George Harvey Strait was born on May 18, 1952 in Poteet, Texas, but it was in the small town of Pearsall, amidst the unforgiving ranchlands near Big Wells, where his true story began to take shape. His father, John Byron Strait Sr., traded chalk dust for rope burns, working both as a teacher and a rancher with the same quiet determination he passed down to his sons. George remembered the land as both harsh and honest, where the sun burned without mercy, and where a child learned early that the world didn't owe them softness. By the time he was 10, the discipline of ranch life had already embedded itself in him. The bite of the cold dawn air, the creak of saddles, the silent understanding that a boy must find his strength long before he truly knows it. At 9, however, George experienced a moment of profound rupture. Tension had been simmering in the house, and one fateful day, it shattered. His mother packed a bag, took his sister Pensy by the hand, and walked out. The door closed behind her with a long, tired groan, a sound that George later said never really stopped echoing in his heart. The warmth, the comfort of his mother was gone in an instant, and George stood frozen, a boy trying to be stronger than any child should have to be. He never spoke publicly about that day, but those closest to him said it hardened him, sharpened his resolve. His silence deepened. From that moment on, it was just George, his brother Buddy, and their father. 3 men holding up a world that had suddenly collapsed. The absence of his mother tightened the ranch life around them like a vice. With no mother in the house and a father who refused to remarry, George learned early that loneliness was not about being alone, but about being surrounded by people who were hurting and unwilling to show it. As cold mornings stretched into long days of labor, George's hands grew calloused from mending fences, and his shoulders ached from driving cattle across endless, dusty acres. But through it all, there was something fragile rising inside him, a spark that would one day turn into the fire of his music. By his teenage years, George's music journey began to take shape. He joined a small garage band, the Stoics, chasing the electrifying spirit of rock and roll. Though he didn't listen to country music, feeling it was too close to home, George would find himself in a Texas dance hall one night, hearing country music not as entertainment, but as truth. The stomp of boots, the cry of the fiddle, the steel guitar's mournful wail, it felt like someone was singing the very things he'd carried in silence. That night, a quiet certainty rose in him, though he didn't yet know how far it would take him. But fate has a way of knocking when you least expect it. After returning from the Army in 1975, George was uncertain of his future. Texas didn't welcome him with comfort. He enrolled in Southwest Texas State University, choosing agriculture as a stable path, but money was tight. He lived off canned beans, stale bread, and ramen. Nights were spent in a cold apartment, sometimes curled in his jacket for warmth. It was a brutal existence, one that would break most men, but not George. In the midst of hunger and hardship, music was the ember that refused to go out. That ember led him to a flyer posted on a campus bulletin board, seeking a singer for a band. He took a chance. The band, Stony Ridge, would become his stepping stone. From 1976 to 1979, George and his bandmates played in honky-tonks filled with cigarette smoke, rowdy crowds, and long, exhausting drives across Texas in a van that seemed to fall apart at every mile. There were nights when they slept in the van because they couldn't afford a motel room. George would later confess, "There were nights I wasn't sure anyone would ever hear me." But even the grueling road and the rejection he faced in Nashville couldn't dim his spirit. From 1977 to 1980, George knocked on doors with demo tapes, only to be dismissed by executives who told him he wasn't marketable, too traditional, or lacked the right look. One man even told him, "What you do belongs in the past." Each rejection felt like another blow to a dream already on life support. By 1980, George was on the brink. After a poorly paid gig one night, he was ready to give up, but fate had other plans. Norma, his wife, saw the emptiness his failure had carved into him. With quiet, unshakable resolve, she urged him, "Give it one more year, George. Just one more." That simple sentence sparked a new fire in him, leading him to Irv Woolsey, an MCA executive who heard in George what Nashville had been too blind to hear. Woolsey believed in him, and that belief opened the door George had been waiting for. The test was a single song, Unwound. The world had no idea that this one song would spark a transformation. When Unwound hit number 6 on the charts in 1981, George knew that his years of struggle and sacrifice had finally paid off. The song ignited a career that would go on to define country music. From that moment, George Strait was on his way to becoming the king of country. George's rise to fame came with its own set of battles. Behind the roaring crowds and platinum albums, there was pain. The demands of success took a toll on his body. The long years on the road, the sleepless nights, and the toll on his spine wore him down. But through it all, he continued. Even when pain would render him nearly immobile, he kept singing because, as he later confessed, music was the only place where his sorrow didn't suffocate him. As George reached the height of his success, his world began to shrink with loss. In 1986, tragedy struck when his daughter, Jennifer, was killed in a car accident. The grief that followed was unimaginable. But George and Norma, bound by love and strength, faced the loss together. Through the darkness, they found the courage to move forward, choosing to carry their daughter's memory with them. The losses didn't stop. In 2009, George lost his older brother, Buddy, followed by his mother, Doris, in 2010, and his father, John, in 2013. Each loss left its mark, but George stood, a man carved by hardship, each tragedy shaping him into the legend the world would one day celebrate. Now, at 73, George Strait has stepped into a chapter of his life defined not by the roar of the crowd, but by peace. No longer just the king of country, he has become a symbol of quiet strength, a man who has endured more than most could bear and continues to rise despite it all. He now lives a life rooted in family, humility, and legacy, with his wife, Norma, by his side, just as they were when they were young, dreaming together. George's wealth is a testament to his hard-earned success. But it is not the miracle of his life. The true miracle is the journey that brought him from the dusty ranch lands of Texas to a life he never imagined. And though the world may crown him king of country, those who truly know him understand this. His greatest strength lies not in his voice, but in his ability to rise again after every fall, carrying with him the memory of those who shaped him. Through all the storms, George Strait remains unbroken. His story is not just one of triumph, but of resilience, of finding light in the darkest of times. And it's a lesson for all of us. Strength is not the absence of pain, but the courage to keep going and to let others help us when we can no longer stand alone. George Strait's legacy will not be measured by the noise he made, but by the quiet grace with which he stood tall, year after year, no matter what life threw at him. A man who endured unimaginable loss and yet continued to offer the world his heart, his voice, and his unwavering strength. And in a world that often feels chaotic, his story reminds us of the power of love, resilience, and the quiet force that is true greatness. May we all strive to live with the same strength and grace.